Hello everybody. I hope your lunch was good. Please sit down. We start the next session after lunch. We have very interesting bSDD, Building Smart Data Dictionary section today. 3 presentations from three different angles about bSDD. We start, so I may ask now to the estrade Léon van Berlo from buildingSMART International, and his subject is how to use the buildingSMART Data Dictionary to extend IFC for your needs. Léon, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone. I just heard I only had 20 minutes of speaking time instead of half an hour, and I have 42 slides. The magic number for anyone who gets that joke. So there are some, I'm trying to have this as non-technical as possible, but there might be a couple of technical slides that I need to skip over quickly, but I guess not all of you would feel too ashamed of that. So the talk is about the buildingSMART Data Dictionary, really on why is there a buildingSMART Data Dictionary. We have a lot of these abbreviations, wide range of them. And there's always a discussion if everyone exactly understands what they all mean. It is a challenge, I have to say. So today, let's just focus on this buildingSMART Data Dictionary. There's a little bit of IFC involved as well, because you have to exchange the data. But let's focus on this one. Can I see? Oh, it's there over there. But not the next slide. So I should have prepared better than to know which. Okay. Thank you. So buildingSMART Data Dictionary basically is nothing more than an online database. If you want to sell this, and there's a marketing guy on stage, you would call it a database in the cloud. But it's really nothing more than that. It's a service that we provide as buildingSMART International, and you can publish your standards there. It hosts a wide range of different standards. National standards, international standards, IFC is also published there to a certain extent, but even company-specific standards. And when I say standards, you need to think about class definitions, terms, classification systems, but also with additional properties linked to that, material list, attributes. We'll dive into that later, but that's it. It runs on bsdd.buildingsmart.org. You can publish data there for free. And other people can search through the database and use the terms and the properties. That's it. In the basis, that's it. It's nothing more complicated than that. It has nothing to do with standards or any kind of complicated stuff. That's it. There's a lot more as well, because I have 20 minutes to spend. Oh, 17 left, I see. So it also has the ability to connect all of these classifications and properties to other standards that are inside the bSDD. So you're creating this linked data network using URIs. I've warned you there are some technical side steps here. The ownership of all of these standards are split, so everything you put in there is owned by someone. It's published under a certain license. So if you have some kind of a standard that you want to publish in there, it stays your ownership, and you decide under which license you can publish it. You can extend other standards that are in there. So you can build something on top of IFC, you can build something on top of Uniclass, whatever you want. And like I said, there's a lot of things in there, so it's also open for company-specific standards. With 16 minutes left, we probably don't have an example on that. So what it's not hosting actual product data, project data. So it's not a common data environment. It's not that. It's not hosting manufacturing product data, so you can't search for pumps in there. It's also not made for maintaining standards. So if you have your standard, you need to maintain it somewhere in a tool of your choice, and then you can publish it through the bSDD. And it's also not a standard itself, and this is a buildingSMART service, so it's also not a cool and fancy tool that is very user-friendly. It's actually pretty ugly. Let's go into an example. So I've used an example from SBB, the Swiss railways. And I found one at the top of their library, Gleichkante, sorry for my German. I thought it was a railway beam, but actually my German is so bad that it was something else. So bear with me with this example, it's just an example. So this is a term that they use. The Swiss railways use this term for asset management, for communication with their contractors. This is something that is really embedded in the terminology of Swiss Railways. You can publish that in the data dictionary. So this is our term, this is what it means, this is our definition, and you can also link it to IFC track elements. You can say this is a kind of track element. As I said, I learned yesterday there's actually not a track element, so for all of the German-speaking people, bear with me, it's just an example. So you can link it inside the bSDD. You can link it to anything else as well, even outside the bSDD. And you can also add properties to it, like Fachbereich, Gruppe, object type ID, and a lot of other stuff. You can also restrict the values that are allowed for those properties, which is nice sometimes. You can add translations to it for people like me who don't understand what Gleichkante or Fachbereich actually is. And you can even add a lot of additional attributes and semantics to all of these properties as well. So when was it actually published? Is there a norm reference? So if you have a property called capacity, how do you actually measure capacity? Is it according to a CEN norm? Is it according to national norm, whatever? So we're also supporting all of these ISO 23386 standards for product data templates, and the whole structure also supports ISO 12006. So this is what you can publish in the data dictionary. So let's see that in a working example. Again, this is a test model from SBB, Swiss Railways. When I upload that in a CDE, in this case from ACCA, are there people from ACCA in the room? Yes, great. So if you want to learn more and do this example yourself with your model, you can contact the people from ACCA. So I've uploaded this IFC model. Then there's a really tiny button on the top right where you can connect to the bSDD. You can select, I want to have this SBB library, and then it loads on the right side all of the terminologies of the SBB library. So I select what I thought was a Gleichkante, which is apparently something else. So these yellow things, the railway tracks, are actually what the objects I selected, and I say add this term to that object. It's wonderful, right? So you're basically adding the classification to that object, and then the bSDD comes back and says on the right side, I have a pointer here, on the right side, according to the data dictionary, there's also a couple of properties linked to this object. So please fill in the values of that property as well, according to the restrictions. So then you download that file, you open it in any other kind of IFC viewer, and you see there's actually these properties added to it. And there's also the classification reference added to it. That's it. Like I said, it's boring, but this would be a nice moment for an applause. No. So, didn't expect it would be that loud. Thank you. So what's the significance of this? Because there in IFC 4.3, there is a lot of additional semantics and content that actually defines a lot of railway tracks and infra. But IFC is always this global standard. It's the foundation classes. It's the maximum that you can globally agree on. There's always additional properties, always additional terminology that people want to use locally within their country, within their region, within their discipline of MEP, whatever. And instead of trying to cramp them all into IFC and telling everyone to support it, we basically draw a line. IFC is the maximum you can agree on globally, but you do have the ability to extend it. So we actually have an IFC track element with an additional classification LF2, which is a Gleichkante in this case, and additional property sets linked to that as well. So now when this IFC file is being shared with the asset management at SBB, they don't only know that it's a very generic track, they know specifically what kind of track it is, specifically understand where to find the properties, because they have been put in the correct property set with the correct naming, with the correct materials from the material list that has been published as well. So there's almost nothing you can do wrong when you use the bSDD, because you're basically just filling out the predefined templates according to SBB in this case. Okay, 10 minutes to go, halfway. So, bSDD is a service to help modelers quickly add semantics in the correct way. There's always the latest version available of this, in this case, SBA library. Everything is versioned. There's a standard workflow every time. It doesn't matter if I have to deliver a model for SBB or for the national building permits or for the German VDI standards. I always have the same flow. I always select objects, add classification to it, fill in the properties. The flow is always the same. It doesn't matter what kind of standard I have to use. And there's a strong business case on information consistency, because this model that is now being exchanged, the receiver can almost 100% reliably know where to find the information. They know where to find the properties that they asked for. They know where to find the classes. So if you want to have a Solibri rule set or simple BIM checks or any kind of other tool that I would highly recommend to do rule checking, these work immediately because you have a file that is structured according to how you want it. If you make a business case on this for asset managers, for contractors that need to do coordination every week, it's a very strong business case because it always works. You don't have to go back to the supplier, say, you did it wrong in IFC, I want to have it in a different place, etc., etc. I'm quite sure you all recognize this use case. We already have quite some support because of this strong business case. So I showed you the akka file, the akka system, where we use this because it works on 4.3 quite nicely. But there's actually a SketchUp plugin to add semantics to your IFC using the connection and a plugin to the bSDD. We have a Revit plugin available, and there's a Tremble Connect plugin as well. So when I just pointed you to the akka guys, wonderful, but this is not just a one software tool approach. There's actually multiple tools that are supporting this connection to the data dictionary. So the stakeholders business case, users always have the same workflow. It's very difficult to put something in the wrong location when you use the bSDD. The information always ends up in the right location. Software vendors only need to connect to the bSDD API, and then they support 100 different standards that are in there, so they don't have to make individual plugins for every different standard. And publishers have a broad reach. So this is the gist of this presentation. If you have an after lunch dip and thinking about falling asleep, this is the moment. The rest is all additional features and I want to sell it to you how cool it is. But this is the gist. This is the business case. This is the added value why this is becoming increasingly popular. So technical sidestep, I'll be quick because I only have 7 minutes left. Actually, there's also a reference inside this IFC file to the link in the data dictionary. So when I receive this IFC file and I don't really know what this LF2 Gleiskante means, I can actually, in tools that support this, click on the show me the bSDD info. It follows that link and I will get more information about this. What is it? What are the kind of properties expected? What's actually the definition? What do you mean by this property that you want called medium? What is it, medium as a property? What do I need to fill in there? So you just follow the reference and you see all of the definitions and even the licenses. When was it published? Who do I need to contact? Change requests. Like I said, a lot of additional features that I'm going to spam you with in the rest of this remaining 6 minutes. So, like I said, there is more. Thanks to this technical sidestep, we can also help to keep this BIM information consistent. So when I have a classification code in the bSDD called 2122, and according to the data dictionary links to IFC, 2122 is a load-bearing outer wall, so it needs to have a property load-bearing and is external, and the values of that need to be true. So when I get a file that has a code 2122, I can check in the bSDD what should be the properties, what should be the value of these properties. So when inside my file this property load-bearing is false, but the classification code according to the bSDD should say it's true, I have inconsistent information. The classification doesn't match the properties. So we can check that as well thanks to the bSDD. Like I said, I'm skipping over a couple of the technical stuff. Feel free to just pull me over after this presentation. I have lots of really cool use cases and examples of this. It's also this way to just publish your libraries, your classification systems, whatever. We also have a lot of people in there at the moment that just think it's the right way to publish in this open and neutral platform and just figure it out how you want to use it. So the business case is very strong, but we also have a lot of people who just think this is the right way to do it. And instead of publishing Excel sheets or PDFs, this is a very structured way. It's also free, by the way, that also helps. And again, there's this linking between standards. There's a lot of linked data people who feel very passionate about this. We also support that in the bSDD. So this is the sales page with the strong emphasis on the business case on the first part. 5 minutes left. This is also the part in the presentation where I don't know what the next slide is. So, yeah, even more features and sales pages. I'm going to end up way on time. So first one is actually quite interesting. This is always the first frequently asked question when I talk about bSDD. Who tells me that the data published in the bSDD is verified? Can I trust this? Who put this in? Is it actually SBB doing this? Is it structured correctly? So we have this I'm a little bit ashamed to call it the Twitter verified icon. We actually have something similar in the bSDD as well, where you have domains with versions that actually have this icon that says this is verified, you can trust this. We support product data templates, obviously. This is also the way to extend IFC. We have very nice use cases on IFC for airports, which are extending IFC thanks to the data dictionary. And the nice thing is that you don't have to put it into IFC and go through all of this voting and consensus, and then it's only in the latest version. When you put it in the data dictionary, you can extend all of the IFC entities, also the ones from 2x3, and it works out of the box immediately after you publish. Again, very strong business case on adding semantics in real life. We can publish national material databases. In general, we can do classes, classifications, property sets, allowed values, materials, attributes, units, and a lot of these product data templates attributes as well. Multi-language search capabilities, linked data is cool. We have multiple APIs for those who are interested in that, even a GraphQL interface. We have triples, RDF. I should also emphasize that there's a very strong governance. Like I said, there's 2 ISO standards that are on the base of this. But the governance is also really focused on adding value in practice to get this up and running. So high level of security, everything runs on Azure. Servers are in Europe. We have a lot of GDPR backups, etc. So all of that is really enterprise stable, arranged properly. And the bSDD can also help you with setting up your information requirements. Again, that is another use case where you can search the data dictionary to see what properties are already defined that I can put in my exchange information requirements, my IDS, my MVD, whatever you want to call it. So, sorry for that long pitch of features on how cool this is. I know most of you were only like 1 or 2, but I hope that the combined audience can appreciate this full list. So business model for if you're enthusiastic about this, like me, and you want to put something in, how does it work? How much do I have to pay? You don't have to pay anything if you publish your data for free. We also have classification systems that are not for free. If those systems want to publish in the data dictionary, we're basically resellers and we have to make an agreement. But if you want to publish your data for free, it is for free forever. You keep ownership, etc., etc. So more information you can also find on that QR code. So to wrap up, I have 1 minute and 20 left. The bSDD is a service, it's not a standard. It provides huge added value to data owners, modelers, but also to software vendors. It's out there, it works, it's for free, has a very strong governance. So I really invite you to have a look, test it, try it out. Like I said, the ACA guys are already here. But if you want to know more, there's also a new guy we recently hired, Arthur Tromzak. He's being lined up to become the bSDD product manager. So if you have any kind of questions, please feel free to contact him. And if you want to know even more, I am happily inviting you to the buildingSMART Summit, which is end of March. And I think there's even some kind of a discount code as well, 5% discount code when you use the QR codes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Leon. Was it hard? My first question, was it hard to keep on time?
It was surprisingly, I see I have 10 seconds left, so it was surprisingly easy, yeah.
So, any questions from the audience you can put to the here, or you can just raise your hand, please. There is some questions. My first question is a little bit modified from here. Is this an Excel killer?
I hope so. Yeah, well, honestly, we have an Excel template where you can put in your data and then it can generate the correct structure to upload to the bSDD. So if you really want to use Excel, which I understand, it's a mighty tool, you can also use Excel. We have this template where you can fill in everything and then publish it to the bSDD. But eventually, yeah, we do hope that the bSDD is the tool that people go to instead of copy-pasting from Excel. Yeah.
You said that bSDD is free for users, so there was a question, who pays to keep the servers running, especially if everybody starts using it like you like?
Well, in reality, I am. Yeah, it's not that expensive. I mean, it's an online database. I think we pay about €1,000 a month at the moment for Azure. We have a lot higher costs in the organization at other locations, and it makes sense for us to do this. There's no other organization where it makes sense as a neutral body to provide this kind of service. This is part of what we need to be doing. This is also part of a strategy to keep IFC lean and predictable and reliable. So it matches our mission and our strategy. And as you know, we're a membership-driven organization. There's a lot of members paying my salary, and they're also paying this drop in the bucket of €1,000 a month. So the costs of running this are so low. This is just something we need to do.
So you hope that everybody in the world is using bSDD. Do you have any figures from nowadays use? How many organizations, how many dictionaries or anything?
It's a good question. So at the moment we have about 100 domains or dictionaries in there, or whatever you want to call it. Some of them are still in the sandbox experimental version. I don't know exactly how many are in the production version at the moment. But it seems to be the buzzword of the moment. We almost weekly have new people joining and experimenting with this. I actually got an email this morning that a large national road authority in Scandinavia, I don't want to mention names, they were introduced with the bSDD just last Friday, and they've published their whole data set, over 1,000 classes and properties today. So it's just in a couple of hours, people get it, they publish to the bSDD, and it's immediately available in all of those tools that support the plugin. So it just makes sense. The added value is so strong. So I do expect that this 100 domains that we have now will exponentially explode in the next couple of months.
Any questions from the audience? You can raise your hand also. Okay, then I continue my own questions.
Please, questions.
Questions.
He's having difficult questions, please.
So you mentioned Scandinavian National Road and Rail Organizations. I'm representing one, and my question is: we are publishing everything, like I said earlier, PDF. Could we use this one for publishing all our standards, all our requirements, or what are we missing?
Yeah, definitely. I think what the part that is missing in bSDD at the moment is that when these authorities publish something, you also need to be able to refer it from contracts. So we tried to make this as feasible as possible to refer to in contract. So everything has a unique URI. When there's a new version, there's always a version number in the identifier as well, so you can't refer to something that changes. And we also were experimenting with just exporting a whole domain to PDF to be able to use it as an attachment in contracts. So yeah, this is definitely for us a priority to figure that out, how we can facilitate it as best as possible.
And old versions, because at least in our organization, contracts are always dated to 1 day. Can you use is it possible?
Yeah, so that's exactly, that is something we used from the beginning in the design. So everything that's in there is versioned. There's a timestamp when it was published, when it was released, by who. So all of these ISO 23386 attributes are in there and supported. So you can always point to certain moments in time, and you can always look back. It's kind of a sticky reference. Yeah.
There's one question from our audience. Is it possible to have multiple mappings for one property?
Yes, definitely. Also to things outside the bSDD, I want to make a point of that. So it's not like you can only refer to things inside and we create some kind of a lock-in situation. You can even refer to things outside the dictionary. So it's definitely possible. Yeah, our linked data strategy is fully committed in, or fully expanded in the bSDD.
Any more questions? Thank you, Claude, for your question. Okay, then thank you, Léon. Thank you. Okay, we have a little 3-minute break before the next presentation because we have to keep on time. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Léon was mentioning in his presentation Scandinavian National Road and Rail Organization. Now we have one case example. Next presentation is how to utilize bSDD in infrastructure owner's perspective. Case Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency. And please welcome Niki Tapper, Ramboll Finland, and Teea Kantojärvi, Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency.
So hello, nice to see you all here. My name is Teea Kantojärvi and I work as a railway data specialist and of infrastructure data management unit at FTIA. And today with me is Niki.
Yeah, hi, I'm Niki Tapper from Ramboll Finland and I'm working as a BIM developer at the moment. Thank you.
And we are going to inform you today how we have studied bSDD from the infrastructure owner point of view. And now we have studied how does it work in reality. Léon was just selling bSDD to us, and now we are telling how does it work. So firstly, some background of our project. So on the right, there is a very simplified diagram of the infrastructure life cycle and project information from design and construction phases should transfer smoothly to maintenance phase. But unfortunately, for asset management, it has been challenging to transfer information between different phases independently of software. So manual work is often required, which causes waste and errors, of course. And the one problem is that the required information is scattered to several instructions, technical documents, and specifications, and in systems. Yeah. So at FTIA, we have this common project information database for project project information from design and construction phases, but then we have a separate asset information management systems for road and rail domains. So we need to extend IFC 4.3 in order to meet the national and user-specific data requirements and specifically these requirements for the asset information. And these issues are also discussed in this buildingSMART International Asset Operations Handover proposal. Then something about the objective of our project. So we wanted to study the new technology-enabled methods to manage and share data content requirements, and we tested the capability of bSDD as a distribution channel. And we have a couple of projects going on, so and we have focused on rail and road domain and on certain asset categories. So we had one project for rail domain, which focused on railway turnouts and signs, and the next one, which is going on right now, there is level crossings and railing and something about the electricity. And the objective is to transfer and utilize data content effectively during the entire life cycle of the object. And of course, utilization should be easy for all parties involved. That includes designers, contractors, supervisors, and maintainers. And it should be clear for all parties what is the information they are expected to hand over in specific phases. And the aim is that the required information will return the asset management systems for initial data for new projects. So the cycle goes on and on. Actually, their clock isn't working.
Yeah.
Still 20 minutes left. Okay. And we did some preparatory work, what was essential for finding out how to use bSDD. So first, we collected existing data requirements. So it already exists, but it's in several places and several documents. Like Tarmo said, there was like 300 guidelines, not all of them. Luckily, we didn't have to read all of them, but at least some of them. And then we defined the requirements with technical experts. We have had several workshops in specific domains or in technical field. Then we defined and standardized the properties. So like Léon said, you can define different kind of information. So the assets, what kind of properties and attributes do they have, data type, list of property values and allowed values. And then we compared and linked these to the IFC 4.3 specifications. So we wanted to find out the suitability of IFC format to FTIA needs. And by this we formed the base for linking our data content requirements and their respective IFC definitions. And thirdly, we explored the data structure in bSDD. So we imported the data models from road and rail domains to bSDD and explored how the data structure, for example, or hierarchical components, applies in the system. So we found out that the data structure has a significant role in using bSDD, so it affects usability and how the end user utilizes the data content in design software. So will the designer have a long list of different kind of properties and attributes, or how we can make it a little bit shorter list and easier to use. And next, Niki will inform you the details and the outcomes of the project.
Yeah, thank you, Teea. So it's the green button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. In my part of presentation, I will tell how bSDD could be used as a distribution channel for clients, in this case, Teea's information content of BIM models. And I'm focusing mainly on bSDD. Many other specifications and things are involved in this, like IDS. I mentioned it briefly, but I'm focusing in this presentation mainly in bSDD and its core functionalities. So bSDD enables efficient and highly automated processes that can be used for different purposes. For example, it could be used for searching and viewing information content, different standards, stuff like this from the bSDD. It could be used for checking and validating data, or as Leon mentioned, presentation before ours, that you could use it also for enriching BIM models itself. And the content can be easily searched and viewed via web interface. Even the main focus or the benefits are in the APs. I think the human ability to read information by human is very important. So here we have a screenshot from bSDD's web interface, where we can see one of these rail objects or classifications in bSDD. And in this case, I'm sorry it's in Finnish, but in this case we are speaking about the rail classification. And from listing you can see the domain information and URI that are used for the API linkage. You can also see the properties and the property name and description. In this picture, we focus on one property that is rail profile, again in Finnish, but yeah, it's rail profile, one of properties of the rail. And in this example, there has been defined alueet values in Teea's registers. So we imported these alueet values also in bSDD. So in property level, we can see the property name, domain and URI info again, property description, alueet values if there is set any, and also the classifications that share this specific property, like in the bottom of the picture under the classifications. So two different classifications have this rail profile property. But of course, the greatest potential is in bSDD's application program interfaces or in APIs. And with APIs, they can be used in design automation, in quality assurance. There is a huge amount of different part of process or processes where we can utilize these APIs. And the main thing with using the standardized data and bSDD and the APIs that bSDD provides, it's that it's ensured that the material produced is always meets the client needs and requirements for the information content. So yeah, the standardized data and API, they are the main thing for that. The client gets the information content that they have set. Oh, is there a back button? Yeah. And one one interesting and good thing in bSDD, as Leon mentioned in previous presentation, is that you can link different standards or content in bSDD to your content. And in this case, EFC linkage to IFC standard, it's more than interesting, because when we link client-specific specifications or properties or information to the IFC standard, we make sure that material is always according to client's requirements, but also adheres to the IFC definition. So that is a very big pro in this bSDD and ability to link its different classifications or different content. And as I mentioned, we are not going too deep into IDS, information delivery specification, but with IDS we can supplement the requirements, for example, according to the certain planning phase or by certain project. So we can add more needed properties or requirements, or we can take some away in some different case. So IDS enables to ability to make more complex, in one way more complex requirements with bSDD, together with bSDD. I have clock is ticking down faster than I think. We have a 4-minute video. The idea is to, I think I have to skip the video, but it pulls together things that I'm speaking to you, and I think you are able to get this video. I think so, hope so. So you can see how bSDD and this standardized data could be utilized in common, widely used design software, and in this case, Civil 3D from Autodesk. So I hope you get the video and could see what is the content. But yeah, I will skip it in this case. But yeah, the main things, what we learned in these development projects and piloting of the bSDD itself. Implementation of the system requires familiarization and experimentation. Not all functionalities are documented in full, so you have to test and familiarize how to use them, in which case you use what functionality. So that's the one thing we learned from this project. The second one is that future operating models and processes need to be clarified. It's this point have some contact with the first one, but we haven't in these development projects fully understood how to make, for example, this more complex data structure and stuff like this. So those things are going to be solved when the bSDD is going to use it more widely, for example, directly in design softwares. So we have educated questions at the moment. And one important thing is that the importance of effective information management between different sources and bSDD. When we have a lot of data, in case of Teea, there is a huge amount of road, rail, waterway content. So it must be information management between sources and bSDD must be effective. for the sake of information usability and reliability. So this is thing to consider. So which tools are we using to build bSDD data models? Which way we import the data from bSDD, from sources to bSDD and stuff like this. And lastly, outcomes. The system is very suitable as a distribution channel for a rich and diverse data content. The system supports richly diverse data contents. Effective use of the system still needs or requires extensive standardization of data, and addition to the defining and standardizing the property data and values and content of the properties, we have to standardize and define also the structure of the data in the system. bSDD API offers great potential. Sadly, we didn't see the video, but it's able to, with the API interface, we are able to do many things like, like to make more versatile design processes and stuff like this. And together, bSDD and IFC enables rich operator-specific data transfer without the need to define everything at the international level. And at the end, what next? Testing piloted technologies and operational models in practice. And in this testing, it's needed to also consider IDS and use case management. Thank you.
Thank you, Niki. Thank you, Teea. There is actually only one question. Can we see the video? And we
yeah, sure.
10 minutes, 10 minutes for the, so please go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a second.
In this demo, I will show you how to utilize standardized data and APIs provided by bSDD in Civil 3D design software. At the start, I will run the script that we are using to fetch data from bSDD. I am using Teea's rail domain URI to fetch data from rail domain. From the list that appears, we can see the classifications that are under the Teea's rail domain. From the list, we also can see the amount of properties that these different classifications have. We take a closer look of the classification of rail. From the list that appears on the right side, on non-bold text, we can see the properties of the rail classification. For example, property of rail profile, we can see that script also fetch the allowed values from bSDD if it's set to property. With the bold text are presented the related classifications or the classifications that are related to this rail classification. The idea is that the specific classification can contain related classifications. For example, in this case, rail classification can have common properties for all rail objects, this top classification on the list. Or rail classification can also contain quad rail classification. We can inspect the properties of these related classifications. For example, this property tells is the object located on the main or non-main rail line. When we want to import information from bSDD, we can choose if we want to import also the related classifications. In this case, we want to import the rail classification itself, but also the common properties for all rail objects or classifications and classification of guard rail. Now the information is imported in Civil 3D. As we can see, the script made property sets from these classifications. These property sets can now be attached to object. From the list, we can see that all chosen classification are attached to the rail object. And from list, for example, designer can now choose the allowed or chosen value for specific properties or fill up the needed value for other properties. The rail object with all these properties can now be exported from Civil 3D in IFC format. I have done this I did this before, but as we can see, all properties and information are attached to IFC model as shown here.
Okay, thank you. We still have a little bit time for questions. Please, audience, you can raise your hand or ask a question. I start. You heard Leon's presentation earlier. There were many statements what the bSDD is and what bSDD isn't. Is it not cool?
It's cool, I think so. Yeah, it's cool.
What is your next steps for the after this project?
So we have the same kind of project going with the road domain, and then I think we have to study IDS more carefully, because we have a huge project going on how to transfer data from this project information database, the asset information management systems. That is called GeoVita, that was mentioned in your presentation earlier. So we are figuring out the whole process. So when we are going to use bSDD and when we are going to use IDS, and what is the role of the different systems between the PIM and the AIM, because we need to fulfill the gap between the PIM and the AIM systems.
And in this moment, the results are promising, I think so?
Yeah, so far, yeah. Still some work needs to be done, but yeah, it's promising.
Would you recommend this kind of project for other Scandinavian road and rail organizations too?
No way. Of course, yeah. I think the data structure was something that I think everyone has to figure it out by themselves, or how does it applies in your system. So that's one thing I recommended to study.
And if when you need project information to asset information, is there any other chance than use this kind of bSDD approach, or?
Of course, you can program, but we at FTIA, we use this BSI standards. So this is the way we are trying to find the solution.
Any other questions? One more question from audience. There is one question there.
Thank you. My question is, in the video that you showed us, which was quite informative, you're talking about some script which is connected to the bSDD database. Is it something, a free add-on, or you developed this script?
We made this, it's a quite simple test script. We made it in Rumble. It's not somewhere where you can freely download it. It's our own tool at the moment.
Okay.
Just to test or pilot the functionalities, but it's in some way quite simple to read the APIs.
But you are proved us that it could works.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, like mainly the proof of concept. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Teea. Thank you, Niki.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, our last presentation, this bSDD team is now continuing. We go to Italy, and the subject is using IFC 4.3 with bSDD for railway, and Giulia Minnucci, did I say it right?
Yes, correct.
Please.
Thank you. So, hi everybody. I'm hoping I will get the hang of this. So, good afternoon. As you can see, my name is Giulia Minnucci. I'm from Italy. I'm representing today both my company, Angesys, and our client, which is RFI, the major shareholder for the Italian railway infrastructure. So the topic today is basically our use case of how we use the bSDD to create the RFI railway dictionary with the prototype version of bSDD so far. So just a quick introduction about who we are. Angesys is mainly an engineering and consulting company. We have a team of diverse people with different backgrounds. So, for example, I come from the economics, with economics background. I have tech colleagues, developers, engineers, and we all offer engineering services, but mostly consulting on standard-based technologies, data modeling, and data exchanges. And of course, our mission is to help our clients to define and implement a strategy for the whole organization that is based on interoperability concepts. Okay. One such client is RFI. As I said before, RFI is the major shareholder of the Italian network, but it's also the major manager of the Italian infrastructure. And they've been working on developing their own OpenBIM strategy for quite some time. So just to give you an example, they've been very big on supporting the adoption of OpenBIM since 2018, when they first joined the railway room of buildingSMART. And their strategy focuses on these 4 key main points, which are culture, processes, data management, and technology. Starting from culture, as they have joined buildingSMART, they also started to give training to all their people. And they've been volunteering, of course. They're experts in all their IFC projects regarding railway, of course, in the last years. They've been developing workflows, roles, with some working groups, rules, specifications. Of course, they have also developed their own asset model. It's a data model of their assets, of their infrastructure, and they have been creating libraries of objects which are now being mapped to IFC with our help and the help of their experts that have been working with the IFC railway project so far. Of course, all this is not possible if they don't have the tools. So we've been working together with them in the past 2 years to develop requirements for softwares that they still need to, of course, buy. With these requirements, we have also produced some tests to test if these softwares are good enough for their needs. And these tests are all based on IFC 4.3 files, of course, because that's the standard that they need to use for their railway infrastructure. They have also worked, we have also worked with them to develop some requirements for the use of CDEs, so common data environments. They've been using them in projects now. So going forward with this OpenBIM adoption, all of this is being standardized in procedures. that we're helping them with, and of course they will be implemented in pilot projects from which we will get some return of experiences, hopefully in a continuous improvement, right? So why are we working with the bSDD now? So RFI wants to create their own dictionary because they need to specify some detailed levels of needs and requirements in contracts. And as Leon stated beforehand, bSDD helps because it gives a tool or a place, let's say, for the external operator to actually go to get these requirements and the classification. The classification is also very important for RFI because with that they can actually integrate the CDE that they are using to manage these projects with internal other softwares such as ERPs, for example. And of course they want to enable, human readable and machine readable interpretation of the models. And we're always talking about IFC for the tree here, of course. So where did we start in creating a dictionary for RFI? RFI already has a data model of their asset that they started to develop in 2018. And this model is basically a UML model that maps all their assets. It has classification of all their assets in main domains and sub-package domains. But mostly what's important here is that they have asset classification and already they have some properties related to each asset classification. So this was a great starting point for us, right? So what we did was, together with their experts, we developed an approach that consists of 3 steps. First step is to map all their assets in IFC. So just so you know, I will be referring to their asset model as the information map, because that's how they call it. So we mapped part, let's say, for the moment, of the information map in IFC, including the mapping in their UML model. Then we developed a UML to JSON script, which automatically helps us to upload the information map onto the bSDD, trying to map the concepts of the structured data that is in the information map with the structure of the data of the bSDD. And then, of course, last step is to actually do the upload of the dictionary on the bSDD test environment. So I will explain to you briefly the 3 steps. First step, as I said, is including the IFC mapping in their information map, so in their UML model. Basically, what we did is, since we already had asset classification for each of their assets, we tried with their experts to understand to which corresponding IFC entity we could map it. So, for example, if we had something that resembled a rail, we needed to see if it was a special element for them or a physical object. Or anyways, they have a lot of systems, so we had to understand if these could be mapped toward IFC group, IFC system, or assemblies. So we had, of course, the help of the experts that RFI had already involved in the IFC Rail Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects, which helped a lot, of course, because they were part of the people that developed the standard, so they knew what we were talking about. And we included as some values, some properties, this mapping inside their UML model. After that, what we did was we had the model on one side with the mapping, and then we had the data structure for the bSDD, which are basically 2 data models with different organization of data. So we needed to understand if, for example, a name that compared as a value in their model could be mapped to something else in the bSDD. So we defined the strategy on how to insert their information map into the bSDD. And of course, this strategy needs to account for updates, because their information map gets updated almost every year, because they keep adding assets to their portfolio, right? So whenever there's a change in their information model, there has to be a change in the dictionary, otherwise they cannot use this in contracts, right? So we did exactly that. We found the matching concepts between the 2 data models, and we developed a script that would do this automatically, so going from UML to bSDD. And then we defined a strategy to check when the upload is done, if the contents are correct. So the first time we did it manually, and afterwards we developed some queries with our technical team that allowed us to check if all the classification were uploaded correctly in the bSDD and if they had connection to the right properties. Okay, so this is basically the approach that we developed, and we tested it on a portion of the information map because the model is really, really big. And thankfully, we were able to use some existing models, as you can see here, that were developed for the phase 2 of the IFC rail project. You will see here that we used the ACA TD because they provided it for us during the project. And here we have tested with the rail object. As Leon showed you before, we used the plugin of ACA to select the test environment of the bSDD and the RFI classification. I think that's where the video's at. So we were able to identify the rail according to RFI classification. You cannot see it because it's really, really small, but it's called binari di corsa. And as soon as we applied this to the model, we were able to check for the properties that were supposed to be associated to this classification. And we decided to try and change some values. So we input some values just for the test, because we wanted to go back to the properties section of the object in the model to see if it showed. So here I think, yes, we're opening the property section, and if we scroll it down, it shows the RFI classification with the properties and the values that we actually changed inside the CDE directly. I'm sorry, this video was supposed to be bigger, but something went wrong on my side, I guess. So this is just to show how we went back to the bSDD test environment to see how the dictionary was shown. You see here binari di corsa, which is the classification for RFI for rail, and it has the direct link to the IFC entity that it's mapped to. So with this, we were able to actually test that our approach worked. So our mini test worked. So now the next steps will be to do this for the whole information map of RFI. So we still need to map some assets because we did it only on a portion of it. So that will be the next step, mapping the whole UML model of RFI, uploading it on the production environment of bSDD. So we are now in the test environment. As Leon said before, we have not been using the production one because, of course, it's still in the testing phase. We didn't want people to use it in contracts when it was not ready yet. And then, since RFI wants to try and go from the whole specification to validation process, we will be experimenting with the IDS standard next. I'm hoping everybody knows what the IDS is. Can you raise your hand if you don't know what it is? Okay, it's a standard that BSI is developing for formalizing specified requirements. So you will have a list of your objects together with the properties and the allowed values that you can give directly to the designer, for example. It's in XML format and it's machine readable. So you don't have to use Excels anymore or list of objects with tables and stuff. I'm hoping I clarify this well. So if anybody from buildingSMART knows I said something wrong, please tell me. Yes, and RFI now is very happy with this approach, of course, because it fits with their whole strategy, right? Also because it's OpenBIM based. It's their way of extending the IFC without really extending the schema through an external classification, which is theirs, of course. It's replicable because it can be used and tailored to other domains. It's also easy to use because, as Aka showed, software developers can develop the plugin. As Leon said, a lot of software houses are doing this, and they can just link it to the RFI dictionary. So that's easy to use in contracts in the future. And it's innovative, of course, because we've been using the IFC 4.3 version. Now, I know I have just a few minutes left. This is the main idea that I wanted to show you to you today, which is our use case. And if you have any questions, now I think we have some minutes. But before I end my presentation, I want to leave you with something that has nothing to do with this. But since we are part of the railway room, Leon this morning told you that there is going to be the summit in Rome at the end of March. The Railway Room is organizing a game, so if anybody is interested in that, there are some requirements to participate, meaning such as knowing what an alignment is, so some basic knowledge of railway modeling. There's going to be a game. If you want to know more information about this game, you can use this QR code. It will send you to the web page that we are putting in place for the game. The prerequisites to participate are in there. The aim of this game is to create some teams to experiment with the IFC 4.3 to specify, create models and validate models against that specification. People will be provided with a small data set from the newest project that's going on in the Railway Room. And so, yeah, I'm hoping somebody will participate because it's going to be very nice and fun, I'm guessing. Also, please, all the emails will be sent to me if you decide to participate, so keep it really, really short. Thank you. That would be nice. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much. It's not... right.
Thank you, Giulia. You really made your time. You were more efficient and more fast and more efficient. There are a few technical questions, but I have to ask the same question I asked last time. Do you think the bSDD is cool or not cool?
Of course I think it's cool, otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Okay, there is some technical questions. Did you add bSDD references in IFC as IFC classification reference or PSETs?
Sorry, repeat that again.
Please.
Which one is it?
This one.
Did you add bSDD references in IFC as no, it's a IFC classification reference, definitely. We are using it as an external classification, so we try to do everything as per, specifics of the IFC schema, mostly.
And then there's another question. How about using ISO 23486 to implement change management for the RFI bSDD dictionary?
That's a very good question. So I'm not the person that is directly responsible for the update strategy of the strategy that I told you before that we developed, but the technical team did look at the ISO. I'm not sure which part of the ISO they actually implemented in the plan, because they tried to explain it to me multiple times, but my technical knowledge is very, limited. But I know that they looked at it, so yeah.
Now there is still a good chance to ask any questions about the presentation or the game.
Any questions?
Any questions? Just raise your hand.
Seems as clear enough. So
I think your presentation was very good because nobody has any questions.
Thank you. Anyways, if anybody wants to know something else, I will be around today and tomorrow, so you can just stop me and ask.
Okay, you can ask Giulia questions in the coffee break. And
yes.
Soon it's coffee break. Thank you very much for this bSDD session.
Thank you. Bye.
And now you can be first in the coffee line because we ended a little bit early.